3M, so you can see, big fan of abrasives that last. These little pads are excellent. Once again, they're soft, they conform, they don't push in one area. If you are trying to get out a little piece of debris and you use a pad that's too hard, you'll create a flat where that piece of debris was, and it makes it harder to get out. So if you use some wet and dry with a conforming style block and just denib out your little piece of your little speck, it's left a round shape in where your piece of debris was, and it polishes out much better, much easier. But yeah, they've got lots of different blocks, lots of different sizes, a slightly bigger one. Once again, use the size of block to fit your repair. So with a block of that length, you could easily rub down a piece of filler or repair that's like 10 inches long, no problem. And this, I think this is about a 14-inch block on this one. So once again, great blocks. Flexible, hard enough that they keep a straight edge, but flexible enough that they will comply to whatever shape you're trying to rub down. The little hand block, which is pretty similar to the 3M block that I started with sort of 40 years ago. This isn't the same block as I started 40 years. They do wear out, they do perish, and they do fall apart. These are great for trapping a third of a sheet of wet and dry. So if you were doing some wet sanding, say on a primer using a P600 or P800, whichever you were using at the time, these blocks are great. Once again, not very good for rubbing over a repair because the block is very small. So if you were just flatting down a primer after all the repairing's been done, you put your 2 or 3 coats of high build primer on, you've guide coated it with a aerosol type guide coat if you're going to do it wet. These are great, these are still usable, they're fine. Obviously if you put a guide coat down that's a dry guide coat, you have to sand dry, you can't sand wet, otherwise you just wash all the dust off. In that Dura-Block kit as well, there's another couple of shaped blocks. So once again, choose a block to rub down the shape that you're looking to achieve. So if you're looking at a little step in a wing or a panel, that would actually work on both sides, keeping your edge sharp. A round block, if you have any curved sections, some concave sections that you wanted to wrap some paper around and maybe even twist and sand down the shape of a wheel arch or a flare on a front fender, something like that. Once again, choose a block that's going to make your shape. Last video I was talking about if you're sanding down a roof skin or a whole door, big door, a panel van that's still got a slight curve in it, you need to go onto a marine board. This is my marine board, once again Dura-Block. It's the same manufacturer as the kit, but these come separate, they don't come in the kit. I've got this one, and I've also got the, I think it's 36 or 40-inch one as well. If you're flatting down a fillered area, say a roof has had some damage, whether it be hailstorm damage or whether it's for whatever reason had a vinyl roof in the past and it now needs to be sanded flat and you've had to skim it with stopper or filler, the biggest block you can find with a slight curve would help you sand down a roof, and that is hard work, but big block does a big amount of sanding at one step. With these, as I said last video, a big fan of P120. This is an inducer brand, this particular one. With all these blocks, when you want them to conform to a shape, once again, if you use the self-adhesive material, rather than leaving it free floating on the block and trying to hold the paper on the block by hand, that's always hard work, that is. If you're trying to hold a piece of paper as well as doing sanding, that's hard work. This paper, self-adhesive on the back, so you can rip off the self-adhesive like so. Peel off a length long enough for your long block and it'll stick on. I'll show you on the smaller one. Let's Just a little bit easier. It's on there. You don't have to hold it by hand. It's on there. It's great. Peels away nicely as well, so it's not something that you're going to have glue and residue on your block. This is the grade. As I say, the 120, 180 is where I mainly use for my shaping of filler. It doesn't put that silly a scratch in that you're forever chasing scratch marks by doing stoppering or lots of coats of primer. The downside with lots of coats of primer, yes, you might at the time of painting hide all the scratch marks from your aggressive papers, but maybe 3 months down the line, when that paint has shrunk and cured back, we'll say, those lines can start reading through the surface. So if you don't want to see any marks in your paint 3 months down the line, don't put them there in the first place is the answer. So I always go a little bit more hard work, maybe, not necessarily so, as I say, with the nice fillers we use today, but use the finer grits to start with. It's very rare for primer to sink into 120 or 180 grits 6 months down the line and cause you a problem. Even if it does sink back, you shouldn't see those marks with the right paper. So yeah, the self-adhesive paper on these boards, because obviously there's no Velcro on them or anything like that, so that's what you'd use to put paper to these. Don't try and hold them, don't try and tape it on or anything silly. Just use your abrasive paper, and it's quite cheap as well. I think that big roll of paper, I think it's about £12 or something. It's not expensive paper. With hand sanding again, as I said before, I buy the mixed batches of these marker pads from my supplier. They also do mixed batches of marker pads again. Once again, don't cheat yourself on buying a cheaper brand. These Merkur Gold pads, the ones I showed you, I painted some mirrors, I believe it was, about a month or so ago. I've done the video for that, and I was using the Gold Flex soft back sponges. These come in a big box, about 30 quid a box or so. Well, at home, because I only do smaller jobs, I don't need that amount of material. So once again, there's places on the internet that sell these pads by the yard. So I have P500 pads. They're in little squares, you just rip one square off at a time. P600 and P800. Once again, you buy them in anything from 2 meters to 5 meters off the roll. And for that, that's about, I think they charge you about £6 or something. It's really cheap, and the best way to buy it, because I've now got a full selection of hand sanding pads without buying 4 boxes. That would have been £100 worth of sanding pads, but I don't need to do that because I can buy it in 5 meters at a time, and because they deliver overnight. If I start looking, like I think here now, I've just got 6 or so pads left of, I think that's the 600. Overnight, eBay, £5. Next day they're on the doorstep. So, as I said before, it's the best cost-effective way of buying the right materials. Buy the expensive stuff, but in smaller batches for what your project needs. The only other hand sanding that I'll sort of go into, Scotch pads, still a necessity in today's body shop. Blend areas, difficult areas around, say, door handles, or the little recesses that we put in when you've taken a door handle out of a car to paint the side of the car, or the little repeater indicators in the wings. There's normally a little sort of 5mm recess taking the shape into the steelwork, into the panel, or around the door handle. you can't get a pad in there that's fixed. A hard pad, something like this, would be no use to get in there. So you need to have something that you can, let's say, wobble up in your fingers, and just scrub away around the edge, just to create some adhesion right round into the backside where your door handle would fit. So the Scotch pads are great for that. Grey Scotch pads are finer cut than red. So blend areas where you think the paint finish might be affected, use the grey Scotch pad. That's your blend area. I also use the 3M buff and blend material. It's like a cutting paste that you put on there as well. That's always just lubricates the pad a bit better and does a better job. Does a nice smooth job. The red pads are okay if you're going to scotch an area where you're going to paint over the top with like a primer rather than a base coat or a clear coat. Always use grey under paint, but under primer it's quite okay to scotch. So if you've repaired an area, say in the centre of a door, you've done all your hard work with your machine sanding, you've done all your finishing, your priming, or you're back to prime, I should say. The painted area around the repair on your original paint, I normally go 320 for the bulk of where the primer is going to go. But at the edge of the primer, you're going to get some sort of overspray around the side. So that's where I would use my grey Scotch pad, maybe, or even the red if you're going to primer over it, just around that edge. So you can use the red, because obviously you're going to be sanding it down again before you paint. So that's where you'd use the different colours of your Scotches. That's about it really for hand sanding. As I say, hand sanding is more for detailed work where you want to create a final shape, a nice sharp line in a filler repair or something. Machine sanders just aren't that capable of creating a shape. Different flexibilities of pads so that you can put a curve in something. Not every piece of sanding is flat. There is a curve. It could be a curve in both directions. So that's one thing that you need to be aware of. Still the same as the airfoil. If you're trying to get something flat and you have got a flat surface, a rock hard pad is the best way to go. If you have any old packing materials, things like that, good to use as blocks. So keep them by, you never know when you might need one. And that's about it really. Nothing more that I can add. Like I said before, I will keep harping on about quality of materials. The end quality, the end product that you do with your body work will always be on the quality of the materials you've used. You could be potentially the best body man in the country, but if you use cheap materials, cheap paints, you won't actually see how good you are. And I've done this especially with spray guns. I know quite a few guys that have turned out some awful work, and I think, why have they done that? So I've sort of tried to coach them. First thing to do is throw away all your cheap and cheerful spray guns, put in their hand a decent spray gun, and just let them find out themselves the difference between a cheap gun and an expensive gun or a better quality gun. So in that scenario, it's better to go out and buy a second-hand DeVille Bliss for £70 or £80 than it is to spend £40 or £50 on a cheap, cheerful gun that's hopeless. You'll get discouraged if you start turning out badly rubbed down or prepped work, or badly finished work from a spray gun point of view. You'll get discouraged, think, I'm no good at doing this, I'll go and do something else. And potentially you could be extremely good at doing it. So give yourself the best chance of producing the best quality work and it all starts out with the best quality materials. Everybody's got to start somewhere. If you're doing a tart-up job on a £100 car, who cares? Yeah, at the end of the day, I know I shouldn't really say that, but if you're doing a paint job on a £20,000 car, I think my most expensive car I've painted was about 270,000. I think it was valued at the time. Obviously, you're not going to go cheap and cheerful paint, cheap and cheerful spray gun to paint a car that value. So I always say, the better quality materials, the better quality spray guns that you buy, the better quality paint you buy, will pay dividends in the end. You will say to yourself, I didn't think I was capable of doing a job like that. So don't shortchange yourself with quality items. Buy the quality items at smaller batches, and you'll suss it. It'll be great. Right, I hope that's been helpful this morning. It's time for me to stop jabbering on and put all these back in an order in the sheds when I know where they are. Hope that's been of interest. I'll keep thinking now of what to show you guys next. So if you like what you see, I've done about 16 or 18 videos now. If there's things you're picking up on, if there's things that the beginner is saying, oh, I'd quite like to have a go at this myself, keep subscribing. I'll keep us going through at this pace at the moment, finding out about materials and equipments and things, and then the real fun will start in the future. We'll be going right up to doing a complete paint job in a full-size downdraft booth. We'll go through stage by stage. We'll have some smart repair bits in before we go into the big booth. So you guys that just want to do bumper scuffs and things on your driveway at home, we'll have a camera set up at home, and we'll show you how to do things like that as well. But yeah, I'm trying to take you through little bits at a time, take on a little bit of the jigsaw puzzle each time, and we'll get to where we need to be in the end, and I hope you enjoy the journey along as well. Right, enough for today. See you guys shortly. Cheers.